Agility is taking over the way organizations conduct operations at a rapid pace. However, in order to achieve agility, you must understand the fundamental aspects of it. Scrum is one of the components which enable organizations to achieve agility. Today, my guest Fabian Schwartz and I discuss topics such as how to empower cross-functionality in high-performance teams, how to use Scrum in any size business, Scrum framework for management that increases productivity and allows a team to provide value much faster, how Scrum can help businesses create a plan in an uncertain environment just like today, and amongst many other topics. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 116, your Scrum Playbook with CEO Fabian Schwartz. Welcome one, welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy, and thanks for coming out because you want to develop yourself as a leader. And here at Moving Forward Leadership, we talk about the three domains of leadership, and that is leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. And today, we're going to be focusing on that last one, leading your organization, how you lead your organization to become better, how you use Scrum to achieve agility, to churn out products quicker, be efficient, be effective, be everything that you want to be as an organization to boost that bottom line, whatever that bottom line is. And here, you're going to learn about it. You're especially going to learn about it with my guest today, Fabian. He's the CEO of Scrum Columbia. He's also a professor of Agile Project Management, and he's also the author of the book, Your Scrum Playbook. So, he knows what he's talking about. And on top of that, he's got more than 20 years of experience in the tech sector in many roles. And he has come up through the system in using Scrum and employing it to achieve agility in organizations that he's worked in. Awesome guest. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this interview with Fabian and I. So, you know what? I'm not going to hold it back any longer. So I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Fabian Schwartz talking about your Scrum Playbook. Fabian, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, yes, thanks for having me on your podcast.
Oh, no, it's been a long time running, in the making, I should say, unfortunately, but that's what happens in the podcasting world sometimes. But nonetheless, we're here. We're at what I like to refer to as the line of departure sometimes. And we're talking today about Scrum. We're talking about how to use Scrum in organizations, how leaders can find the benefits of Scrum. But before we really dive into all those nuts and bolts and those important things, can you tell us what Scrum is for the person who hasn't even heard of Scrum yet?
Yeah, sure. So think of it as a very lightweight management framework that helps you organizing or getting your work done.
So in the framework, I guess there would be some kind of set of principles or a methodology behind that framework.
Okay, yeah. So Scrum is not a methodology. It's like when we talk about a methodology, we talk about like a recipe where you get steps, like you do step 1, 2, 3, and you achieve the same result if you repeat the steps. Scrum is more that terms like a framework that tells you what you have to do, but it leaves the space open and how you do it. So it has values to it, and it has some pillars, we call it, and it has some artifacts, roles, and events that are the basic elements. It's very, very lightweight, and the thing is, like if you apply all this together, it sounds a lot now, but it's really lightweight. The official guide has only 16 pages. Then you can get work done, but with very few bureaucracy, let's say it like this.
So you mentioned there are some pillars. What are those pillars exactly, and how do they fit in?
Okay. So the idea is that Scrum is based on empiricism. Okay. And the pillars of empiricism, and was that also of Scrum, is inspection and adaptation. So the idea is that you inspect what's going on, what you do, what you've achieved, and also your environment, how you work together, etc. And then you adapt to what you see. Now there's a third pillar, and that's the essential to be able to inspect and adapt, and that's transparency. So if you don't have transparency, you obviously can't inspect and adapt. So you need transparency, inspection, and adaptation in order for Scrum to work.
Makes sense. I like it. So we're talking about Scrum and implementing that in organizations. And one of the, I guess, key components of that is how it helps people get empowered and cross-functionality, especially in a team environment. So can you explain how Scrum enables that?
Oh, yeah, sure. So if you think about the traditional organization structure, you have departments, right? So you might have a development department, and then you have a Q&A or test department, and then you have a release department, operations department, etc. But now the problem is, if you look, for example, at the development department, they can't produce value for the client because they can only produce one part. So the first step we want to do is we want to have a team that is actually able to produce value end to end. So they are able to develop, test, launch, and maintain the product, for example. So that's the first step.
Okay.
But if you do that, you run into a problem, because you have now a developer and a tester, let's say, on the team. So you have roles, and a tester tests and the developer develops. Now, not everybody works at the same rhythm and can get the same work done at the same time. So what usually happens is there's some kind of a bottleneck and some other role with idle time, which is not good.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that we create what we call T-shaped people. So the developer, if you take the vertical part of the T, that's the specialty of the person. So the developer's specialty is development, obviously, and is that with the other guys. But we also want to have them at least general knowledge about the other work on the team. For example, the developer should have some general knowledge about testing. So in case the tester becomes the bottleneck, now he can help him instead of doing something else. No, he can help him and stabilize the flow, if you want. So that creates really high performing teams with a single flow. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, it makes absolute sense. If you think in terms of what you're basically doing is enabling the entire team to basically self-reallocate kind of in helping other people to ensure that there's no bottleneck, so that the flow can continue. Now, you talked about different organizations, different departments. So that kind of leads me down the path thinking that Scrum is more along the lines of a larger organization, but could it be used in smaller organizations as well?
So it can be used in both. A typical Scrum team or a typical development team in Scrum is up to 9 people. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a startup, it fits perfectly. Actually, it makes perfect sense to use it in a startup because of the inspection and adaptation and the iteration. You're really fast and adapting to change, which you need in a startup. And if you have a big organization with 20,000 people, let's say, well, you will have several teams. And then you have another challenge because you have to synchronize the teams, but it still works. So you can apply them from one team to 1,000 teams if you want.
Yeah, actually, I really like that startup point because for sure, often startup teams are small. The players are doing many different jobs, and they definitely do not have the ability to withstand backlog and having files or products or projects, whatever, get held up because one person's either not there or they just can't work as fast as the rest of the team combined and stuff like that. So I think the startup idea is definitely a big one.
Yeah, for sure. And for a startup, it makes perfect sense, right? So it's probably even more natural to not have defined roles. So the bigger you get, the more often we see in our clients that you have defined roles. And if you have these defined roles, that makes it a little bit difficult to be T-shaped in the beginning. You still get there, but for a startup, as you said, it's probably more natural to already work in different roles, or don't even have roles. You just do what has to be done.
Right. So you talked about some of the benefits, obviously reducing the bottleneck, keeping workflow going. Are there other benefits that would bring Scrum to forward leaders out there to their organizations if they implement this type of ideology?
Oh yeah, sure. So the first thing is you can develop value faster. You can deliver value faster, which is always good because that you want to get the value to the client, right? So fast is usually good. And a second important thing is, if you look at the business world today, it is very fast changing. Also, business models are changing very fast. So that makes some business models obsolete very fast. It also creates another great opportunity on the other side, but you have to be fast to capture that. And that means you have to be able to change your strategy fast. To change the direction of your company fast. And Scrum is able to help you with that. Like if you think about a really big traditional organization, you probably think about something like a battleship. And to change direction is difficult. Now, if you think of that about maybe instead of a battleship, you now have 1,000 small speedboats all going in the same direction. If they want to change direction, it's really fast. It's still the same number of people, but they change faster.
Yeah, that speed of change is definitely crucial, especially as you mentioned, this day and age, right? Things change all the time. They change very quickly. And organizations need to be able to react and respond to those changes. So I definitely can see how Scrum can help and why it would be important to implement. And those all sound great things, but everything has a negative side to it, right? There's the positives of it, but where and when can that fail? What are the setbacks that Scrum gives to an organization that employs it?
Okay, so I think let me answer that in two ways. So the first is, maybe you have to look at in what environment Scrum works better, in what environment Scrum doesn't show all its positive features, if you want. So Scrum is really good in uncertain environments. So if you develop a new project, if you develop a new product, if you do something that you haven't done before, if you do something where it's not really clear what the end result will look like. So in these environments, Scrum works very well, because Scrum is designed basically to get this uncertainty down fast. But if you have something where you exactly know what you do, and you just repeat that all the time, then Scrum won't show you its full benefits, because you don't need to learn anything. Like, I don't know, say you have a process and it's always the same process, and there's no need to improve that process, or you don't want to improve that process. You just repeat the same step over and over again, then you probably won't get as much out of Scrum as you might in an uncertain environment. And a second way to answer that question is, now if you implement Scrum, but you do it wrong, then you also can cause a lot of problems, because then you don't get anything done. Now the question is if you did get stuff done before. So we work with lots of big clients. Many of them work traditionally, and the same thing we hear over and over again. We have a project here, 2 years, 3 years, 1 year. We haven't delivered anything yet, anything of value. So if you implement Scrum wrong and you don't deliver at the end of the sprint, or you're not able to deliver at the end of an iteration, well, you do something wrong. That's not good. Now the question is if that better or worse than before. If you haven't delivered before, you probably haven't and change the thing. So it's not really bad, but you haven't improved either.
Sometimes you have goals, but you know what? You have a hard time reaching them, and you just can't figure out why. Why is it that you can't achieve those things that you want to achieve? Maybe it's dedication. Maybe it's motivation. Maybe you haven't picked the right goals. So this is where I was not too long ago. And then I realized something. I've been developing the Power Goals program my entire life. And here it is now for you, where you can learn how to pick the right goals, figure out how to achieve those goals, how to stay on track, but most importantly, how to get back on track when you get off. So are you ready? Are ready to up your game and achieve those things that you've been meaning to achieve for so long now? Simply go to movingforwardleadership.com/power and learn more about the Power Goals program and achieve everything that you've been wanting to achieve. And now, back to the show.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely get to see them. Now, I'm sure there are a number of people out there who are listening. I have listeners across the spectrum, all types of different organizations, from big businesses, small businesses, to nonprofits, governments, and stuff like this. So, for the people out there who are listening to this right now, like, yeah, it sounds great. I would love to do that, but you know what? We're in a highly regulated organization. Banking, for example. I'm a leader in a banking organization. It's highly regulated, especially here in Canada. We don't have much leeway, much flexibility. We can't use something like that. What would you say to someone in those terms?
Well, first of all, I would tell them that we have lots of banks as clients. But maybe we should. Let me take that from a different angle. So, why would somebody actually want Scrum? Okay, so what they want to achieve, because I think nobody cares about Scrum as Scrum. Like, nobody want to do Scrum because it's fun to do Scrum. They want to achieve something. They want a kind of a business result. And what they want to usually achieve is there are different reasons, but many want to deliver value faster. Others want to adapt faster to change. Others want to drive their uncertainty or risk down faster. So there are different business reasons where Scrum provides the solution for. Okay, so if you look at the financial industry at banks, for example, then not almost all banks that are our clients, and there are lots of banks, are on digital transformation. Why? Because they're scared of the fintechs. And when they want to go digital, when they want to survive in a digital world, they need an agile mindset. They need to be able to deliver value fast. They need to be able to deliver something at the end of an iteration. They need to be able to adapt fast to change. So, yeah, there are regulations. Yeah, they have to fulfill them. But many clients we see, they fulfill regulations in a way they always fulfill them, and they never even question themselves, okay, there's the regulation, but is there an easier way to fulfill what they ask us? There was one case that has nothing to do with banks, but that was FDA approval in the US. So if you want to have FDA approval for some new medicine, well, you better have documentation, because otherwise you won't get it. So there's no way to skip the documentation. But you can hand in 500 pages or 5,000 pages of documentation, or 25 if you provide what they are looking for. So our clients look at this. They know that this is an issue. They know, like, it's not only these regulations. It's like all internal security stuff, audits, etc. Also, but they are already working with Scrum, and they're seeing results. They deliver digital products really fast, so it's definitely possible.
All right, I'm convinced. I see what you're saying for sure, and I agree with that. And I'm just playing devil's advocate there. I didn't necessarily believe what I was asking, but I wanted to get in the shoes of the person who was thinking that, right, or asking themselves that question, because I work in a daily environment where it's highly regulated, highly regimented. And I often see places where we can implement these type of frameworks and methodologies and ideologies, and not just Scrum, but all kinds of different ones. So I often am the one fighting for us to use these things. You have your book. You have your book, the Scrum Playbook, and in there you talk about how it can help a business create a plan in the uncertain environment. And I find that a bit interesting in that here we're talking about uncertainty in Scrum and how it enables organizations to pivot quickly. So pivoting quickly and planning don't necessarily go hand in hand. So I'd like to understand where you come from when you discuss that.
Okay, so that's a pretty good point, because let's talk about how traditional planning usually works, right? So at the beginning, we take the scope of what we want to do, like we want to develop a new web platform, let's say, and then we try to break down that scope into every detail. Like we obviously try to be 100% complete. We break it down into the last detail, and many techniques. And one technique, for example, that's called the work breakdown structure. And then we take that and we start to estimate, okay, how many people we need, how much time we need, how much money it will cost, etc. And then we create a Gantt chart that basically is still used in most of the projects to show us in time how the project will do. Now, the Gantt chart was invented around 1910 by Henry Gantt. So more than 100 years ago, and still number one way to present how projects do in time. Now, you can imagine that as you ask yourself, you can imagine that that doesn't really work in an uncertain environment, because if some things changed of your assumptions, well, then the plan doesn't work. Okay. Now, how does it work in Scrum? And that's interesting, because many people then think, okay, if I have this uncertain environment, if I have something agile like Scrum, I better don't plan, because if the plan doesn't work, well, why should I plan, right? No, the idea is not that. Yes, we should plan, but we should understand that we plan based on what we know right now. So what we have to do is we have to test these assumptions really fast. So that's why we work in iterations. And what we do then is we inspect and adapt. So we inspect our environment, we inspect what we have, we inspect what we see, and then we adapt our plan. And that's something very interesting. But I guess, most of our, or many of our planning techniques come from the military. And I think when we adapted these techniques to the civilian world, we forget one of a very famous of their sayings, which is, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Well, it doesn't mean that the military doesn't plan. They plan all the time. But what happened is when something changed, they are able to inspect and adapt. While I was working as a project manager, traditional project manager for years. So I hated changing the plan, because I didn't understand that the problem is not the client want to bother me. The problem is something in the environment has changed. So we need to inspect and adapt to that. So that's where I come from.
I really like it, because by day I'm actually a Canadian Army officer. So I spent my day literally planning. So yes, no plan survives contact with the enemy is definitely a saying that goes around. Another one that we often use is we often ask, has the situation changed? And if the situation has changed, then you have to go back and look at your plan to make sure it's still viable, right? And I feel that's kind of like where Scrum is at. It's not set, right. It's not really set in concrete. There's flow, there's ebb, there's give to it, there's flexibility.
Correct.
Things can happen. You look at the situation. Has it changed? Yes, no. Yes, all right, go back, look at your plan, validate it, adjust what needs to be adjusted, keep moving forward. Unfortunately, I think one of the biggest drawbacks is that certain individuals will get completely married, invested in the plan so much that they think it's the ultimate plan and it can't be changed, or there's no reason to change, and they lose that the objectivity of the plan. I think that's one of the things that people need to be aware of out there.
I think that's a pretty good summary. Like, it's not about the plan; it's about what you want to achieve with the plan. So if your context or environment has changed, you better change the plan. But you don't want to change what you want to achieve, but you change the plan.
Right. Focus on that. This is what we say in the Army is the desired end state, where you want to be at the end of whatever it is you're doing.
Correct.
Fabian, this has been a great chat. As one, I got a couple last questions for you. The first one being a question I ask all my guests here at Moving Forward Leadership, and that is, according to you, Fabian Schwartz, what makes a great leader?
I think that depends when you ask me that question. If you ask me right now, I have changed my opinion. That's why I say that a couple of times during the years. As of now, I would say the idea is that the leader actually enables the team to get the job done. So what I want to say with that. So, for example, they have different leadership styles, like very authoritative leaders, etc., and they give you orders, and then they follow up on their orders, etc. But I think, like, people are actually motivated to do their job. That's what I believe. And if especially if you have a purpose on the team and they believe in that purpose and they believe in the product that you build, so they don't get up in the morning and try to sabotage the product. They want to get the work done. They want to achieve this purpose, this vision. So the job of the leader is to get the obstacles out of the way of the team so that they can actually get the job done. So I would call it like a servant leader.
Couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't have said it better myself. Awesome. And the final thing is how can people find you? How can they follow you? What resources do you have? You have the book. Feel free to give it a shameless plug. It's all about you right now.
Okay, yeah, well, we definitely can connect on LinkedIn, Fabian Schwartz on LinkedIn. And if you want to have a look at the book on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and every major retailer, it's your Scrum Playbook. It's poker, not chess.
Awesome. For the listener there, it's easy as always. Just go to movingforwardleadership.com/116. And those links, amongst others, are going to be in the show notes. Fabian, again, thanks for coming out, taking time out of your schedule to talk to myself, but most importantly, the listener on this topic. And definitely a framework which people, I think, could use and probably get more use out of it around everywhere.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. And hope it wasn't a lot of time talking to you.
All right, that's all I got for you fine folks today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And most importantly, I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, remember, R², S², right? Rate and review the show so that it gets a little bit noticed, a bit more. But most importantly, I can help more people, because that's what I'm here for. That's what my guests are here for, is to help more people become better leaders and not being bosses, right? So remember that. R², rate and review. S, share the show. Share this show with someone who you think can relate to the podcast as a whole and today's topic. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And you can do that via your podcast playing app of choice through movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, stop bossing and start leading. Take care now.